Okay, where is it? Oh, there it is. And share my screen. Are there any questions before we get started? You should be able to see my screen now.
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you. Um, this is our Canvas webpage. You should go there if you haven't already. Let me see. I go to the dashboard. So I've already logged in, but boy, this is slow. It's probably because this is the first day, second day of school. So there you go. So you should select your Canvas course, and it has a nice picture of a virus. I need to move this up though, because it's down at the bottom. Click on it, and then you'll see this screen, which is what I have here. I've got a few things to read. There's the syllabus. You should take a look at that. We'll go through it today. Uh, Student and technical help. If you have problems with the course, especially if it's the web page, contacting me won't really solve your problem. All you do is let me know that you have a problem, and then I'll tell you contact the computer help people, and they will work on getting it working. And what do they call that? Computer hub? Is that what Clark College calls it? I was looking for that. But anyways, if you have problems, you should contact the computer help desk. This is particularly true if you have problems getting your quiz to run on your system. To take a quiz in this course, if it's a multiple choice quiz, I should say, you have to use the Respondus lockdown browser, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. I thought I had, there it is, lockdown browser requirements. Um, so for the multiple choice quizzes, you have to download the Respondus lockdown browser and then run that browser to take the quiz. Any question about any of that? Now, what I suggest you do is we have a extra credit practice quiz, which it says it's worth 0 points, but that's because you'll get extra credit points from it. I think there's 2 quizzes, and I'm pretty sure you get at least 1 point for each quiz. Why there are 2 quizzes is that I have 2 quiz designs. There's the fill in the blank short answer questions, and those will be quiz A. And then there's the multiple choice questions where you just select the answer, and that will be quiz B. Quiz B requires Respondus lockdown browser. So you should take practice quiz 00B, and then you'll make sure that Respondus lockdown browser is working on your system. If it's not working on your system, you should contact the computer help desk, and they will help you get it working on your system. So far, all the students who have had trouble with Respondus lockdown browser running on their system, all they've needed to do is change a setting on their computer. And then the Respondus lockdown browser has worked, which is believable because lockdown browser is just another browser. Any questions about any of that? Anyways, take the practice quiz And then you will definitely know that Respondus Lockdown Browser is working on your system. There was one student last term who didn't take the practice quiz and didn't bother getting Respondus Lockdown Browser until she wanted to take the quiz. And then the Respondus Lockdown Browser did not work. Generally speaking, Respondus Lockdown Browser does not work for about one student every other term. So not every term, but every other term. And in which case she then contacted me and I told her, well, thanks for letting me know, but you got to contact the computer help desk and they will get it running on your system or help you get it running on your system. And by that time, she had to go away. She was leaving for some reason and she wasn't going to have internet connectivity. And then she contacted me after she got back, which was several days later. And I told her, no, the answers to the quiz are now showing. You cannot take the quiz. And she said, well, it wasn't my fault. Respondus Lockdown Browser wasn't working on my system. And sure enough, the computer help desk had her change one setting on her computer and then it worked. And I said, look, you are allowed to drop one quiz. This will be the quiz you're dropping because the answers are showing you can no longer take the quiz. But if you take the practice quiz, you will learn in advance whether Respondus Lockdown Browser works or not. And then you'll have time to get it working before you take the quiz. Generally speaking, if you download it early and it's not working, you'll know. And then you can contact the computer help desk and they're pretty good about getting it up and running on your system. They can get it running on your system after a few hours. Okay, because there's obviously you got to contact them and they have to contact you back. And then they change your setting or have you change the setting. Any questions about any of that? All right. Anyways, this is showing you a little bit about the Canvas webpage for the class. I have most of the web page viewable. There is one section that's not viewable, and I'll turn that on when we get closer to it. Let me state that there is an assignment due for this week, and generally the assignments will be due at 11:59 p.m. Saturday of the week the assignment is due, meaning if the assignment is in week 1, it'll be due Saturday at 11:59 p.m. And you do have one assignment for this week, which is due at 11:59 p.m. And that's the avoid plagiarism tutorial. You need to take the plagiarism tutorial and then take the plagiarism quiz by 11:59 p.m. this Saturday. Any questions about any of that? The tutorial was something that the Clark College Library made. So it's pretty good, and it'll tell you about how you can avoid plagiarizing and how to use citations, which is one way to avoid plagiarism, and then take the plagie quiz by this Saturday. You have to score 100% or 20 points on this quiz, but you can take the quiz. It's at least 5 times. Let me look into that. Actually get 7 attempts. And it'll be the same questions. So if you don't succeed in getting 100%, just take it over again. And if you need to, again, rarely do I have students have to take it more than 2 times to get 100 points. If you don't get 100%, then you'll get 0 on the infectious disease research project. The infectious disease research project is worth 100 points, and that will lower your grade by more than 10% if you get 0 on that project. So you need to get 100% on the plagiarism quiz. The plagiarism quiz itself will be worth 20 points. Any questions about any of that? All right. While I'm talking about the plagiarism tutorial and the quiz, I've got a guide here for doing APA citation style. And I cannot remember what APA stands for. There's MLA and APA. Doesn't tell me. Those are just 2 styles for doing citations. All right, any questions about your first assignment? So take a look at your web page. I have the Zoom meeting invite, which obviously I mailed to you and you got it because you connected to the class. All right, any questions about any of that? So if you scroll down, we'll then have the week 1 lecture. I have an overview of chapter 1 and the objectives of chapter 1. You should actually look at the objectives because every question, either exam question or quiz question, is covered in the objectives. Sometimes I'll have notes for the chapter or study guide, and the objectives will just be at the top of the study guide. For chapter 1, I pulled out the objectives and made a separate link. And then there's a study guide, which will be the material we're going to go over today. However, the study guide is in sentence format. It's not in the PowerPoint format, but you could print it out and then put your notes on this page. Any question about any of that? And then there will be a worksheet for the lesson 1. And this is due this Saturday as well at 11:59 p.m. The nice thing about this worksheet is if you pull it up, it tells you you only need to answer 1 or maybe on some worksheets 2 questions. But you do need to answer the questions in the order they are in the worksheet. Otherwise, you'll get a penalty. So if you're the first one, you just pull it up and the first question is 1. The naming and classifying of organisms was begun in the 18th century by, and then name who started it. So put 1 and then the answer. It's good if you put the question as well and then put the answer. And then the second student who comes along will go 2. He began the scientific binomial nomenclature because every species has 2 names, and then you answer what the first name is and the second name of the species. An example is Homo sapiens. Okay. It needs to be in order because if students don't do it in order, it's very confusing as to which question has been answered and which question has been skipped. So you do have to answer the questions in order. And if you don't like the question, say, I don't know the answer to this one, just skip it and then come back to it, and later another student will fill that in, and then you can take the next question. Okay, so don't just skip a question and then move on. You'll get a penalty if you do that. Take the questions in the order they come. And like I said, if you don't like the question, let some other student answer it. And then before you leave, after you submit your answer, make sure you're the first person to submit that answer. Meaning if two people submit the answer to question number 6, only the first person who submitted that question will get graded and get the points for that assignment. So if you are the second person or the third, that very rarely happens, but sometimes people are the second person, then you need to answer another question if you want the credit. Any question about any of that? All right. So there's 21 questions. That should be almost perfect because the class normally takes 20 students. There were 2 students who contacted me about joining the class. Are either of those students here? Okay. I'm going to assume they're not here, in which case I will not be adding them. All right, there's some extra credit. That's what EC stands for, extra credit assignments. You can take a picture of your face and then submit it. If you don't have a picture of you or your face, then just get somebody with a phone to take a picture, email it to you, and then you can submit the picture. And then there's an extra credit study sheet. Let me go ahead and open that. The study sheet is to work out your study schedule when you plan to be studying for this class. And to do this assignment, you do need to give me your schedule. If you want to be private, then just on the first tab, just write in your schedule, like at 7 a.m. if you're sleeping, just put sleeping, okay? You can put sleeping for all of them or whatever. And then if you wake up at 8, you, I don't know, get dressed, eat, whatever, get ready for work, and at 9 you go leave to work. So put that, eating, getting ready for work, something like that. And then you work from 9 to, I don't know, 9 to 5, let's say. You get home, you eat from 6 to 7, and then when you're studying, you don't need to put that here. You can leave that blank. From 7 to 10, you're studying. On log 1, you put for what week, which would be week 1, when you're studying for week 1, which I think I said from 7 to 10 on Monday. And then do that for each of the days of the week. So on log 1, which is tab 2, put what week you're studying. So this should be week 1. No, it's right there actually. And if there are other weeks you're doing it, you can add that in. If you're all going to be having the same study schedule for the entire term, you can then just state that. And if you do that, then you only have to do the schedule, your schedule, and then log 1. However, if week 2, you have a different study schedule, put it on log 2. And if you have a different study schedule for week 3, put it on log 3. And if you need more week study schedules, go ahead and just keep adding them. Any question about any of that?
Yeah, I have a question.
Um, do you want us to log study time like make a plan for the week or after we've done the studying, write it down?
No, make your plan,
Okay. Okay,
Uh-huh.
thank you.
because this has to be submitted. I don't remember.
On by Saturday?
Yeah, Saturday, September 24th. Oh, this is another Saturday this week.
Okay.
Okay. So you get 3 points for your schedule and 3 points for your study schedule. If something isn't clear, there will be a -1 penalty. So you should say study for when you're studying. Okay. And like I said, if you don't want to tell me your exact schedule, just say things general like working. You don't have to tell me where. If you're planning some, I don't know how do I word this, family time, you just say family time. You don't have to say, I'm reading a story to my son or something like that. You know, don't have to give me great details. Just I need to know when what your schedule is going to be. And then I'll take a look at when you're saying you're studying and when you're not. And generally, the only comments I state will be if I feel people aren't studying enough for this class, I'll tell them that most students need to have more study time than they've done. You're not going to get a deduction. I'm just going to let you know that most people will need to study more than that for this class. And I'll talk a little bit about that when I talk about the syllabus. All right, any question about that assignment?
I actually have a question. If I had like a family trip coming up, like a vacation, like in mid-November, would
Uh-huh.
you want me to include that on like something called like log 8, or would you rather me just do like log 2 or log 3 and then specify like add a note like this is for mid-November?
Yeah, that week would actually follow a different study schedule. So you should make a tab for that week. Now,
Okay,
how
perfect.
many weeks would you have a different study schedule besides that 1 week?
I would say 2 weeks total, no more than 2 weeks.
Okay, so yeah, then there will be enough tabs in the assignment already. So you shouldn't have any trouble.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right.
I also have a question. I study a lot at work, so I have a lot of downtime, but some weeks I don't, so then I stay up later to do that.
Yeah, what you should do is on your schedule, put that you're at work, and then on your studying, when you're putting the tab for your studying, you should just put study for when you're studying at home or the library or whatnot, or at school. But when you're studying at work, you should clearly state studying at work. Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, the trouble will be is, are you going to know when you're going to be studying at work?
I typically study when my kids at work are studying, so we do study. It's just very, very different times each day if emergencies come up.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you will be able to put that on the log because you're not really going to know when you're going to be studying or for how long. But if you can guess how long you'll be studying at work, try and put that in there and make it clear that you're studying at work. Okay, because it'll be during the work time. So I need to know that you're studying at work. And then you won't get penalized because if you put a study when you're working, normally I wouldn't count that. Okay, because generally most people cannot study when they're at work.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. All right. If you scroll down, you'll come to the week 1 lab, and we will talk about that when we have the lab. All right. let's move to the syllabus. You can find the syllabus near the top of the Canvas webpage. There's the numbers for the class. And actually, the lab class, although it's 0 credits, is the important one because this is where you will be graded for the class. And it has something to do with the CTC. And there was an initial problem of setting up a lab and a lecture together. And then the lab wasn't for any credits and the lecture was. And they worked it out where the lab will take your course grade, but I think the lab in the class is still worth 0 credits. Anyways, the lecture is from 5 to 6:20. We will probably end at 6:15. If we don't end at 6:15, somebody should let me know at 6:15 so that I can wrap up the course and then shut down. We do need a little bit of downtime before I start the lab because the Zoom meeting, once we end it, it has to do something to finalize the program before I can upload it to my my website. And I guess I forgot to mention that. You can find the lessons online. And you go to my YouTube site to do that. One disadvantage of that is, let me see if I can move that, is that it won't be available right away. You have to click twice to get it out of Canvas webpage. But if you miss the Zoom meeting, you can see it online. And this is my YouTube website, assuming that I successfully make it. Let me stop the share just to make certain I'm recording. Yep, I am. Boy, this is really slow. Put it up here. Now, before it comes up here, it has to do something on YouTube site. And then obviously I won't put it up immediately after the class, but usually I put it up after the lab. So sometime that night, in which case it should be available for you to view, oh, maybe 4 to 6 hours after the lesson. These are from the previous term. The point is, if you miss the Zoom meeting, you can view it on my YouTube website, assuming no mistakes are made, meaning I recorded. So if ever you don't see that I'm recording your class, you should let me know so I can get it recorded. And the point of this is to try and have this class both in person over Zoom as well as online. Any question about any of that? All right. Attendance is not required, although it is advantageous because you can ask questions in the Zoom meeting. And the only way you can ask questions if you watch the YouTube video is by emailing me. All right, so there's my contact information. You can contact me at clark.edu. However, I prefer you to contact me with the Canvas inbox. I will check the Canvas inbox at least every other day. I've already checked it today and answered several messages. It looks like I've got a new one. If you email me at the clark.edu website, I will only be checking this email about twice a week. And the reason being is I get a lot of garbage email sent to this email account, so I don't check it that often. So if you want a quick response, send your email through Canvas. Any question about any of that? I do have an office, but I'm not really going to be on campus this term. So if you want to talk to me, you should arrange it online. And the easiest way to do that is to do it in the lab, if you don't mind other students hearing, or we can wait until the lab is done and then just continue the meeting, and then I can talk to you then. We can also do it by email, or rarely, I've set up a special Zoom session to contact students. Okay. Textbooks, you've probably already seen this. You can get it in the bookstore, or you can buy it online, and you can get the third custom edition, a special edition made for Clark College, or you can buy the regular full edition textbook, which is actually the 12th edition, is the edition equal to the third edition of the custom edition. I think they have the 13th edition out, but it's not the edition we would use. The 12th edition would be the same as the custom edition. The custom edition is special in that it only has the chapters that we use at Clark. And then the full edition has all the chapters. You can also rent or buy the e-textbook. If you buy it online, or the e-textbook, it'll be cheaper than in the bookstore. And you may get the older editions of the textbook, which are even cheaper. However, if you get the older editions of the textbook, you will have to figure out which pages to read. Now, most of the time, that's not a big problem, because on chapter 1, all you have to do is read chapter 1, whatever edition of the textbook you use. However, if I've assigned pages, like in week 1 and part of week 2, we were covering chapter 1 and a little bit of chapter 10. The parts of chapter 10 you have to read for the third edition of the textbook. And I think this is true for the complete edition of the textbook. You only have to read pages 264 to 272, which are the classification of microorganisms. If you have a different edition of the textbook, you have to find out where the classification of microorganisms is, and then read those pages. Okay, so it's not difficult to do, but you do have to figure out what pages to read. For most of the chapters, you'll just be given a chapter, and that'll be easy to figure out what to read. I'm just looking to see, is there any other place? Yeah, it's only chapter 10 where we have specific pages to read. All right. if you do not have the textbook yet, you are not at a disadvantage. And that's because I have on this link here, the first 3 chapters of the textbook online, and then the chapter summaries for all the other chapters that are assigned. So for chapters 1, chapter 2, and I think chapter 3, the complete chapters are online. For the others, it's just the summary, chapter summaries.
I have a quick question.
Yeah,
So if we just have the green book, is that sufficient? Or do we need the B and C on that list there?
what is the green textbook?
It is the 3rd custom edition.
Yeah, that's the full, that's up here. You're fine.
Okay, so I don't need
You don't need anything else for the textbook.
okay, so just that top one.
Yeah.
Okay,
There are optional texts which you may buy, you don't have to. They're useful, but they are not required. And the bookstore has them. You can also find them in the library, the course reserves. Okay. And then you should check out Canvas for other resources. It is your responsibility to check the Canvas website to get study materials and what we'll be doing, as well as if I make an announcement, I'll put it on the Canvas website. All right, course description, course outlines, I'll let you read through that. Course policies and suggestions. If you're ill, you should contact me before an assignment is due. Okay? And make arrangements for late work. If you contact me after the assignment is due, you may get a late penalty. So even if you're ill, I don't expect you to be attending, although this is an online class, so you should be able to attend even if you're ill. But you can make arrangements for making late work. Generally, even if you're ill, you know, I do expect you to get the assignment in when it is due. Preparation for class, you should know the material we're going to cover. You don't need to necessarily read it beforehand, but you should know the material before we get started on the lesson. And it's good if you were to read it beforehand, but it's not required. You do need to read the material before the quiz. Attendance and participation. I'm not going to take attendance and give you participation points. However, that reminds me that there is one assignment which is actually due before Saturday, and I'll talk about in the lab. I am going to take attendance for who's attending our class, and I'll be doing it from worksheet lab 00. And because of that, this assignment is due Friday at 8 a.m. I'll discuss more about that when we're talking about the lab. I will be taking attendance from people turning in lab exercise 0 or worksheet lab 00. And if you are not turning this in by Friday at 8 a.m., you will probably be dropped from the class. So make sure you get this in by Friday at 8 a.m. And if you, for some reason, cannot get it in by Friday at 8 a.m., you better let me know or you may be dropped from the class. But other than that, and the reason for taking attendance during the first week is to determine if somebody registered for the course and then never dropped it. And in the first week, I think by Friday, probably 5 p.m., I can drop students. And so I will check to see if everyone turned in worksheet 00, and somebody who is not, I can then drop the student. And if the two students who were trying to add the class want to add the class, if somebody is dropped, we can then add them. So that's the only reason for taking attendance. The online quizzes do have an assigned due date, and they must be taken by that due date. Any question about that? For the online quizzes, you do need to take them within 24 hours of when they are due. So before 24 hours, you cannot take the quiz. And then after the due date, you cannot take the quiz. I'll let you read about wearing masks and student responsibilities. I'll talk about that a little bit. You should pre-read the lab modules, although that's not required because the lab's online. You should have them handy with when you're doing the lab. Either have your computer or notebook or what do you call lab book with you while you're doing the lab, and then have on one screen the lab module and another screen the worksheet, and then you do the lab. First you read through the lab module, and then you answer the questions in the worksheet and turn in the worksheet. Know the dates of assignments. They're listed in the syllabus and in Canvas. Generally, most assignments are due Saturday of that week at 11:59 p.m. There are a few exceptions, and the exceptions are generally listed in the syllabus. I don't have that there. Lab 00 is an exception. It's not due on Saturday, it's Friday. I'll try and correct that. But near the end of the term, for example, the assignments are not due necessarily on Saturday. I know that the unknown notes pages is due, I think, Friday. So it looks like there are not that many exceptions. The quizzes are on the syllabus as well when they are, and I'll talk about that when I get to them. All right, any questions so far? You should keep all papers and final grades until the Canvas course grade is given. And if there's a mistake, then you should notify me. In fact, on an assignment, if you notice that the assignment was graded something, and then the grade in the grade book is different, you should let me know. Generally, for most assignments which are online, I'll put the grade on the assignment, which transfers it to the grade book. So that shouldn't be a problem. You should follow the student code of conduct, especially if it applies to academic honesty. Cheating and plagiarism are not allowed in class. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. The lab safety rules must be followed. We'll talk more about that when we come to the lab. All interactions must be professional, either between student and student, student and to instructor, and instructor to student. This means no flaming, no cursing, keep everything respectful. Everything should be phrased in a positive, non-confrontational, non-offensive language. And that includes me too. If ever I get defensive, would probably be when I would be, but confrontational, let me know. And hopefully I'll calm down. Instructor responsibilities. I'll try to respond to all Canvas emails within 48 hours. If you email me at clark.edu, I'll try to respond in about a half a week. I will try to have all assignments graded within a week of the due date. The exception are the big assignments that take additional time to grade. And those assignments, I'm not even gonna say how long they're gonna take me, but generally it takes me longer than a week to grade a big assignment. And that would be the lab report, the infectious disease project. I think those are the only two big assignments. Now for the quizzes, I should say for the lab worksheets, you'll be turning them in twice. I'll talk more about that in the lab, but the first time you turn it in, you'll either get 100% or you'll get 0.01 points. That 0.01 points is not a grade. It is a code to tell me that you did not get 100% on the lab, and you will get a second chance to turn in that lab worksheet. And so I need to see that 0.01 and go back to that lab worksheet and then regrade it a second time. Any question about any of that? I'll talk more about that when we talk about the lab. Only the lab worksheets can be turned in twice. They are due when they are due, but then you do have another week to get it 100% if you did not get 100% on the lab worksheet. The point is, I knew there was a point there. Only the first grading will be done within a week of the due date. Okay, the second grading will get done whenever I have time to get the second grading done. And I know that will be a little bit of a problem if you're curious to what your grade is and I don't have it done. The only thing I can suggest is try and get 100% the first time, and then you'll have a grade in your lab worksheet after about a week. Because usually I start falling behind, and the second grading is one that is not a high priority for me, because the first grading is the grading that is a high priority, meaning I'll give it preference, grade it first, and then if I have time, I will go back and grade the second grading. Any questions about any of that? All right, if not, let's move on. The point is, be respectful even if we strongly disagree. And generally, I never will get into talking about politics and religion, so there's no reason why not to be professional. Course withdrawal, if you need to do that, try and withdraw during the first week because if you do, it's not a withdrawal, it's a drop, in which case you'll get 100% refund for the course. If you withdraw after the first week, you get a W on your report card and you have to pay for the class. So try and drop within the first week. And I think you have to drop before Saturday of this week. I'm not exactly sure when the exact time is. It might be Friday at 5 p.m., but it might be Saturday. You can look into that. In fact, I usually had a link for that someplace. It's on the calendar for Clark College when you can withdraw or when you can drop. If you do not withdraw from the course, then you will get the grade that you deserve. And if you just stop attending and don't turn in assignments, you will most likely receive an F grade. I do accept late assignments. However, all work is due on the date and time listed on the schedule. The penalty for a late assignment is if you're 1 day late, the assignment will be marked down 25%. All assignments after 1 day late will be marked down 50% up until finals week. During finals week, I no longer will accept late work. Okay, but if you turn something in before finals week and it's late, it'll be marked down 50%. Unless it's only 1 day late, in which case we mark down 25%. Any questions about any of that?
I do
Well,
have
how
a
you turn
question.
in a late assignment, you can't submit it to Canvas. So you have to attach it to your Canvas email or message. Student conduct, you must follow the Clark Student Code of Conduct, which can be found at this website here. That used to be a link. Generally, you cannot plagiarize. Plagiarism is whenever you use 3 or more words from somebody else and you do not put it in quotes and then state where you got those words from. So if ever you use 3 or more words from somebody else, put it in quotes and state where you got it from. That is not plagiarizing. But if you do, and I find you're plagiarizing, like you pull an answer from some other person or some other book, and I discover it, you'll then get a 0 on that assignment, and I'll state that you are plagiarizing. So you should learn in the plagiarism tutorial not to do that and how to correct from doing that. Generally, I do not go looking through the web page to see if you are deliberately plagiarizing. However, occasionally students get together and they work together, and there's no problem with that. Just make sure everything is in your own words. And if you like your study buddy's answer, then you should take that answer and put it in your own words. If you do not, then you should put it in quotes and say, I got this from my study buddy, and then state the name. Otherwise, it is plagiarism. And occasionally I will be grading assignments and discover that students have the same exact answer, in which case they will get a 0 on that assignment. So do not plagiarize. Even if you're working together, use your own words is best. If you don't use your own words, put it in quotes and state where you got it from. That is the main problem that students have at Clark College, meaning breaking the student code of conduct. If you cheat, work together with another student on a quiz, submit the same answer, then you are cheating and you'll get a 0 for that quiz or that exam. If it happens the second time, infractions will be documented and the student will be referred to the Student Affairs for further disciplinary action. It could result in suspension from school at Clark. Any question about that? All right, I'll let you read about reasonable accommodation for religious or conscience. If you do use this accommodation, you have to let me know within the first 2 weeks of class that you want an accommodation. Let you read about the etiquette for Zoom. Generally with that, just be respectful. I'll let you read about translational services, suggested study methods. Microbiology is a hard and challenging course. It's going to introduce much new vocabulary, thousands of new terms you will learn, many new concepts. You'll have several assignments due at the same time. You may feel stressed, especially in the middle of the term. This is normal, okay? But many students will find this class one of their more enjoyable, especially the lab. To alleviate this stress, please understand the commitment you are about to undertake. To be successful, you must set aside sufficient study time. Now, sufficient study time is an individual matter, but most students will need to study an average of 2 hours for each hour of class. So this class meets about 3 hours of lecture, plus 4 hours of lab each week. So 7 hours total per week. Therefore, you need to study on average about 14 hours outside of class time, as well as the 7 hours of class time. So that's 21 hours a week set aside for this class. Then you'll need that time to do your assignments, to do the reading, and to study. If external responsibilities prevent you from doing this, then maybe you should consider taking this class at a later term when you have the time to commit to this class. You can read about comprehension, but to get a passing grade, you will need to demonstrate that you comprehend some material, not just memorize the material. And then all students learn differently. You can go to this website and find out what learning, gosh, why did that move? What learning style you have, and then how to best use your style for learning. Here are a list of suggestions that may help you in studying effectively. Take on a manageable chunk of material, only a section of a chapter. Unless you're brilliant, trying to learn too much at once can be counterproductive. You can use mapping strategies. Be organized. We'll have several concurrent assignments due at the same time, so be organized. Try to use 10 or 15 minutes before class to scan both the previous class's notes and those for the upcoming class. This will help you remember where we left off and get you into the proper mindset for class. Come to class. I know that sounds simple, but if you're here, you will generally do better than if you're not here. And part of the reason for that is you'll be able to listen to the material in the class. And that sounds stupid, but if you're listening, you're actually going to be learning about 10% of the material. And that's not much, I realize, but that's better than nothing. And to really learn the material, you have to go over it time and time again. On average, how many times do you think you have to go over something before you finally learn it? Like if you're practicing a piece on the piano or the guitar, or you're practicing some activity at work, how many times do you have to do it before you finally learn it? Does anybody know? Anybody have a guess?
More than a dozen?
Hey, that's correct. It's more than a dozen. It's actually about 20 times. Now, for some reason, they've done most of these studies on middle school students. Okay. But if you're coming to class, you will hear it. And that will be one time. And then you have to go over that material on average about 20 times before you'll learn it. Now, we are adults. And if you really want to learn the material, you can learn it faster if you really want to learn it by going over it less than 20 times. But you still have to go over it a large number of times. So you need to go over your notes. So take notes. One reason for taking notes is you're hearing it and then you're writing down your notes. Your brain will hear it and then translate to write the notes. So in reality, you will learn 20% of the material, which is 10% more than just listening. And that's still low, but to really learn the material, you have to go over your notes time and time again. And generally speaking, the best way for students to learn material is to take their notes and then go over their own notes. If you were to simply read through my notes, you will not learn the material as well as you would if you read through your own notes. And I'm not entirely sure why that is the case, but it's just the way that the human brains are designed. So come to class, take notes, and then study your own notes. And go over your notes time and time again, and then you'll finally learn the material. Learning is more than just short-term learning. Short-term memory, you'll only keep for about 24 hours, and then it'll go away. Learning is something that you will keep with you for most of your life. How you turn over that short-term memory into learning is just go over it time and time again. What you should do is take your notes and then review them within 24 hours. You need to review them within 24 hours because short-term memory will allow you to fill in your notes. After 24 hours, you will no longer have short-term memory to fill in your notes. Any question about that? So try active strategies. You should form a study group online, quizzing each other, writing mock questions, asking each other questions. If you do, it will help you learn the material. And I have a extra credit assignment where you get together and then submit that for 1 point each week. So if you do it, you'll actually get extra credit. All right, you can read through some of the other suggestions for studying. I'm going to move on to grading. There's the plagiarism quiz, which is 20 points. There will be 5 quizzes at 75 points, but you get to drop your lowest quiz. So there will be a total of only 6 quizzes at 75 points, and that's 300 points total for the quizzes. The worksheets, there will be 1 for each lab and about 1 for each lecture. That'll be a total of 50 points in the lab and 25 points total in the lecture. There's the unknown bacteria project that's worth 75 points. There's the infectious disease project that's 100 points. Both of those are lab projects, so I'll talk about those more in the lab. There's the cumulative final exam for 150 points. So 20 points, the plagiarism quiz, 300 points for the quizzes, 50 points for the lab assignments, that's the lab worksheets. The identification of the unknown project, 75 points. The infectious disease project, 100 points. The lecture worksheets for 25 points. The final for 150 points. That's a total of 720 points. Possible. Your grade will be your percentage out of that 720 points. You will also have some extra credit assignments worth about 20 points. And that's not included in there. Your grade will be, if you have 92% or greater, you'll get an A. If it's greater than 90%, you'll get an A minus. Greater than 88% is a B plus. Greater than 82% a B. Greater than 80% a B minus, etc. Notice we do not give a C minus or a D plus or a D minus. Okay. And if you get less than 60%, you'll get an F. You should note that the Canvas has a grading scale which differs from this grading scale. This is the grading scale we use in microbiology. And so the letter grade the Canvas gives may not be correct. I think they don't give an A unless you get 93%. But they give a B plus, I think, at 87%. So it's a little different, okay? Any questions about that? I can't change Canvas, by the way, and I'm not going to change this because that's what everybody in microbiology does.
I do have a question about labs. If we were to resubmit, would we resubmit in the same area that we originally submitted the first one?
Yeah, it's the same worksheet.
Okay.
I'll let you read about question review and written corrections. Read about microscope use in the lab and virtual labs. We'll maybe talk about virtual labs in the lab. Here's some links for support services for students. Obviously, Canvas is a helpful support, but there's counseling and health center at Clark, tutoring services. I have not looked to see if there is microbiology in this term. Sometimes they have tutoring for microbiology, other terms they do not. And to tell you the truth, the students have always said that the tutoring for microbiology wasn't that good. Let's just take a look and see if they have a tutor for microbiology. I'm not seeing. Not seeing what they tutor in. Boy, this is a lot of links I'm going through. All right, I'm not finding what they tutor in. I'll try and get a look at that later. Oops, I shouldn't have done that. I didn't. No, that's okay. All right, reasonable accommodations are available to students with a disability. You can read about that if you wish. We started something, I think this is new at Clark College. They have a student success coach. You can read about that and go to the link there. You can use the Canal Library. It will be open this term. You can also get help from a librarian. There's a campus computer resource. So like if you need to print out something, you can go to campus and print it out in the computer resource center. There's help for food, housing, and financial challenges at Clark College. I'll let you read about that. Let me put a plug for the Penguin Pantry. You just go to the Penguin Pantry and pick up food. I don't know how that works, but you pick up a box of food. Safety and security, like if you're very late on campus, you can call campus security and have them walk you to your car. A link for enrollment dates and deadlines. You can go there, like if you're thinking about dropping the class, find out when the drop date is. Virtual assistant for many areas using Zoom. You can read about the non-discrimination policy, school emergency procedures. Maybe very late in this term, we'll have problem with snow and ice. Because this is an online class, I'm pretty sure we will be running. So the only time I will be down is if like we lose the power or I lose internet access. But other than that, we shouldn't have a school in emergency because we're not on campus. You can read through this. It's not terribly important because we're not going to be on campus, but safety information for students and physicians when you're working with bacteria. And then the stuff about the lab. Let me say some advice and comfort. Sometimes it seems like your instructors are your enemies. And it is true that we do need to maintain standards. So we cannot always accommodate you. However, you should know that all of your instructors want you to succeed. We are in the teaching business to help you pass the course, okay? And certainly with me, my goal is to get you to pass this class. So I want you to succeed. If you have any problems, complaints, or concerns, you should come and discuss them with me, either by email or over Zoom. Don't let them fester, because things will only get worse. You know, try and keep in mind that COVID-19 may put additional stress on people. Like for example, if you ever come down with COVID-19, I can understand you're being under stress. You should know that I in particular will work with you to try and get you to pass the course. That is one reason why the lab worksheets, you may turn it in 2 times because I am willing to grade them 2 times. I decided this long ago when the labs went online, that the lab is, I consider, a learning opportunity. And so if your questions are not, your answers to the questions in the lab are not correct the first time. I will tell you which questions are wrong. Question 1 is wrong, and then get you that answer. And then you can resubmit that lab. You'll have about a week. We'll talk about that in the lab. All right. Any questions about that? I would assume a lot of you already know that because you've chosen to join my class. And my class was the only class that filled up and had a wait list. So I'm assuming that you guys know that I do work to try and make you guys succeed in class. And I know you do not need an instructor to learn the material. You could learn it on your own. In fact, usually when students learn it on your own, you learn it better than you do with an instructor. So why do we have instructors? Because it's just easier learning from an instructor. That's the only reason, in my opinion, why we have instructors. Because you would learn it better if you learned it on your own, but it's much more difficult learning it that way. And so we have instructors to ease your learning. And that is my viewpoint of myself. I'm here to ease your learning. Any questions about any of that? All right. So you have to follow the lab safety rules, although you're not ever going to be in the lab, but you do need to know about them. And we'll talk more about that in the lab. So at the end of the syllabus, I have the schedule. So you should look at that for fall 2022. You should note this is tentative. It may change. I'm not planning on changing it, and very rarely do I change it. But for example, like if we were ever to not meet on a certain day, then I'd need to change the lab schedule. And probably what I would do if I ever changed the lab schedule is on November 8th to the 12th, I decided that Veterans Day is November 11th, which is Friday. So you actually have Thursday, November 10th off. It's not really Veterans Day, but I'm giving it to you off because of, well, Veterans Day being the next day. And if ever we need to add a day, I will take this back and say that we're going to meet on November 10th. But at the moment, this day is off. Any question there? All right. Anyways, the schedule is here. So we need to talk about the syllabus, which I'm almost finished with here. I've gone through tips for success. Not covered too much scientific vocabulary yet, but we need to start chapter 1 and eventually chapter 10. And then on the right side is the laboratory schedule. Any questions? I don't have much time left. Let's go on to starting the lesson. Sorry, I'm having a hard time seeing here. Oh, wait a minute. Is it 6:20 now? Nobody told me it was 6:15. We're supposed to end the class. So I will say, are there any questions? I'm not hearing anything. Somebody gave a chat message. I don't use chat because I don't see this when I'm sharing my screen. You are able to work ahead as long as I have the link to do it. All right, if there's no questions, I'm going to end the class and I'll see you in the lab.
Is it the same Zoom link for the lab as well?
No, it's a different Zoom link for the lab.
Okay.